Tommy and Cami's story didn't start with danger or betrayal. It started like any other love story, full of laughter, shared dreams, and quiet moments that felt like forever. They met in the city, where life moved fast, but somehow, between crowded streets and noisy cafes, they found each other. Cami was different from anyone Tommy had ever met, strong, kind, and fearless in a way that drew him in. He felt like he could trust her with everything, and for a while, everything seemed perfect. They spent days exploring small hidden corners of the city, nights walking under dim streetlights, and hours just talking about what they wanted from life. But behind Tommy's charming smile and carefree words, there was a part of him Cami never fully understood, a world of danger and debts he had inherited. A world he had tried to leave behind, but that kept creeping back. Tommy had ties he couldn't fully escape. It wasn't something he had chosen lightly. It was a part of his past that refused to stay buried. The cartel was always there, like a shadow hovering over him, watching his moves, and waiting for a chance to pull him back in. He tried to keep Cami separate from it, thinking love could shield her. But love wasn't enough. Slowly, cracks began to appear in their relationship. Small things that seemed harmless at first, late-night phone calls he wouldn't explain, sudden trips. Tense conversations cut short started to make Cami anxious. She loved him deeply, but she also began to sense that something wasn't right. That the world she had stepped into with him wasn't as safe as she had believed. Despite the looming threat, Tommy did everything he could to make their love feel normal. He bought flowers when he could, cooked meals that made Cami laugh, and tried to create moments that felt ordinary, even as the chaos of his life whispered danger in the background. But the more he tried to protect her, the more he realized that the danger wasn't something he could fight off with words or gestures alone. The cartel wasn't forgiving, and they didn't care about love or innocence. One wrong move, one misstep, and everything they had built together could collapse in an instant. He saw it happening around him every day, the cartel punishing those who stepped out of line, destroying families, leaving people terrified and broken. That fear, the constant tension, weighed heavily on Tommy. He knew that love alone wouldn't be enough to keep Cami safe. Then came the day that changed everything. Tommy got a call that made his blood run cold. It was a message from the cartel, a reminder that his past wasn't gone and that it had a way of catching up to anyone who tried to escape. The message was simple but terrifying. Keep your commitments, or the people you love will pay the price. In that moment, Tommy realized the impossible truth. If he stayed close to Cami, if he continued to be by her side, she would become a target. Her life, her freedom, even her very safety, would be at the mercy of dangerous men who had no mercy. Tommy's heart ached with the knowledge that the only way to truly protect her was to step away, to create distance and make her seem untouchable. By making it look like he had abandoned her, it wasn't a decision made in a single moment. It was agonizing, drawn out over sleepless nights filled with doubt, fear, and guilt. He thought about their shared memories, their laughter, the dreams they had whispered to each other in the dark. Every memory was a knife in his heart as he weighed the danger against the love he could no longer shield. He tried to imagine another way, a way he could stay with her and keep her safe. But every scenario ended the same, her life in jeopardy. The realization that love sometimes meant letting go, even if it destroyed him inside, crushed him. But Tommy knew that this sacrifice was the only way Cami might survive the storm that was coming. In the days leading up to the moment he left, Tommy became a shadow of himself, careful, distant, and painfully deliberate in every interaction with Cami. He didn't want to alarm her, didn't want to show fear. But the weight of his secret made him cold at times, distracted, and unpredictable. Cami, naturally intuitive, began to sense a shift but misread the signals, thinking perhaps that Tommy had fallen out of love or lost interest. She couldn't see the truth that he was making the hardest choice of his life, a choice no one should ever have to make. Leave the person he loved most, not out of hate, but out of love and fear for her life. Tommy's days grew heavier as the cartel's presence loomed closer and closer. Every step he took, every phone call he made, carried an invisible weight he couldn't shake. He became a man divided not just between his love for Cami and the danger surrounding them, but between the person he wanted to be and the reality he was trapped in. He started noticing the small signs the men watching from across the street, the cars that seemed to follow him for no reason, the whispered warnings in places that once felt safe. Each encounter reminded him that the past he had tried to bury was still alive, and now it threatened not just his life, but Cami's. He knew that staying by her side, letting her continue to believe in a normal, safe life with him, was becoming more dangerous by the day as the tension mounted. Tommy's interactions with Cami became more strained, though he tried to hide it. He smiled when she looked at him, held her hand when she reached for comfort, but inside, he was unraveling. Every laugh they shared felt borrowed. Every moment of closeness was shadowed by the fear that someone else was watching, waiting to strike. Cami, unaware of the full danger, sensed something was wrong. She questioned him gently at first, then more urgently, asking why he seemed distant, why he sometimes disappeared for hours without explanation. Tommy had no lies that could protect her without adding to the danger. Every lie was a gamble, every truth a risk. The weight of secrecy became unbearable, isolating him in a way that made even the most intimate moments feel hollow. The cartel's demands were relentless, and Tommy knew the consequences of failure were catastrophic. They wanted obedience, they wanted leverage, and they wanted proof that Tommy was still under their control. But Tommy had reached the limit of what he could endure. Without dragging Cami into the storm, he realized that no matter how careful he was, she could become a target just by being near him. The thought of her being harmed because of him was a poison in his veins. Each night, he lay awake, imagining every possible scenario Cami confronted by the cartel, pleading for her life. The fear in her eyes and every scenario ended with his heart breaking and her in danger. The stakes were no longer just about him, they were about her life. Desperate for a solution, Tommy began planning in silence. He considered ways to protect her without drawing attention, ways to mislead the cartel, and ways to disappear without leaving her vulnerable. It was a puzzle, with no perfect solution, each choice carrying devastating consequences. The more he thought about it, the clearer it became. The only way to keep Cami alive was to convince the cartel that she was no longer part of his life. It was a cruel strategy, but one he believed necessary. Love, he realized, sometimes meant making the hardest choices, even when those choices hurt the person you care about most. Meanwhile, Cami's anxiety grew. She felt the distance, the unspoken tension, and the changes in Tommy's behavior. She tried to reach him, to understand what was happening, but every attempt to connect was met with careful deflection. Tommy didn't want to frighten her, didn't want to reveal the danger that stalked them both, but the silence only made her fear worse. She began questioning everything. Did he still love her? Had he been hiding something from the start? Her confusion and worry tore at him more than any threat the cartel could pose. He wanted to tell her the truth, to share the burden of fear, but he knew that even a hint of the danger could put her directly in the cartel's sights. The pressure mounted daily, and Tommy began to feel trapped between two impossible choices. He could stay, risking Cami's life with every moment they shared, or he could leave, breaking her heart, but giving her a chance to survive. He saw no middle ground, no safe compromise. In the quiet moments, he allowed himself to imagine leaving, to create distance between them. But every thought was a knife in his chest. He replayed memories of their happiest times, the laughter, the warmth, the quiet certainty of being together, and it made the thought of leaving almost unbearable. But he knew that love without protection was meaningless. and that sometimes the greatest act of love is sacrifice. Tommy realized that the world he had stepped into was unforgiving, and in that world, decisions were never clean or simple. Every action carried consequences, and the cost of failure was to gamble with Cami's life. He understood, painfully, that leaving her might be the only way to ensure her safety. It was a plan that required courage, secrecy, and a willingness to bear the burden of heartbreak alone. Tommy prepared himself mentally for what had to come, knowing that once he acted, there would be no turning back, and that his choice would haunt both of them forever even if it saved her life.